Just scroll down, and in the NSG name, there is something called properties, something called security rules. And what is this rule for? Can anyone tell me what is this rule for? Inbound, which port is it referring to? RDP 3389, because here I know that the destination port is what? 3389, which is RDP, and I'll just give a name of the rule telling RDP hyphen allow. I also want to add one more rule called HTTP. So I'll just copy all of these things because this is one rule out here. I'll just copy this out, put a comma here, and here I'll say this is HTTP allow, and then I'll change the port number from 3389 to what should I change this? 80. Exactly. 80. And should I change anything else? Priority, exactly. No two rules can have the same priority. So I'll put a priority called 110, 120, whatever it is. If you want to add one more rule, let's say HTTPS, just copy all these things, paste it out. And here I'll change this to 443. I'll say this is HTTPS allow. This is 120, 120 out here. Multiple priorities that I'm giving. And this is my entire rule block, the NSG and also the rule out here. So public IP is done, NSG is also done. Then I have the virtual network to be created, and the virtual network depends on what? NSG, because I am attaching the NSG with the subnet of that particular virtual network out here. So what I'll do, again, parameterize the names wherever possible. I'll say VNet name. I'll give one more parameter called subnet name. I'll give one more parameter called VNet address space, and one more parameter called as subnet address space. Everything that is possible to be parameterized, please parameterize it. This will make your template as dynamic as possible. So just scroll down. In place of the VNet name, I'll just delete this out. I'll say parameters, VNet name. Then it's saying, okay, fine, this is Microsoft.network. This is location. Depends on what? Resource ID of what? Microsoft.network / network security group. But this is not the name of the NSG. I changed the name of the NSG. So instead of giving this name, I'll say parameters NSG name. This is what I can call, because the name that I have given is different. I'm, let's say, completely asking the user to pass this name. I'll just scroll down, and then I have what? Address prefix 10.0.0.16. I'll take this out, and I'll say it is parameters VNet address space. Then I have a subnet. I'll change this name of the subnet to what? Parameters subnet name. And this address prefix, I'll also change this. I'll delete this out. I'll say parameters subnet address space. And do you see in the subnet right now, there is something called what? Network security group ID. Here is just calling the resource ID of that particular network security group rule. So I'll just take this out. I'll say parameters NSG name. Whatever I passed in the depends on, whatever I passed in the depends on, I'm just copying everything and I have it here. This is how I went ahead and I created something called as a VNet and a subnet. And once the subnet is created, it will attach itself to that particular NSG out there. So let's say collapse this out as well. And then finally what I'm creating, network interface. And what does the network interface depend upon? Public IP and what? The virtual network out here. So what I'll do is, again, for the NSG name, I'll go ahead, create a new parameter called NSG name. Oh, sorry, not NSG name. I said NIC card name. So NIC name, because this is the NIC card name that I'm creating. I'll just scroll down. Here, I'll say it is parameters NIC name. Then it is setting location, resource group dot location. It depends upon public IP and also the virtual network, whose names are different. This is not the same name again. This is a template provided name, but now I'll replace it with parameters. And since this is public IP, I'll say it is public IP address name. And then this is virtual network. I'll take this out and I'll say it is parameters VNet name out here. This is what I'm doing. Then very importantly, there is something called properties under the network interface card, which tells what is the private IP and what is the private IP allocation method, static or dynamic. You can either say static, you can either say dynamic again here, or you can also parameterize this, telling allowed values, allocation method. Anything is okay with me. I'll just put it dynamic for now. Just scroll down. It's asking you for what? Public IP address and the ID of that particular public IP address out here, which is not this one, but I'll just take this out and I'll say it is parameters public IP address name. And then see, your network interface card is getting attached to what? The subnet. So it's asking you for the ID of the subnet. And if you see this, it's telling resource ID of Microsoft.networks / virtual networks / subnets, comma, virtual network, comma, subnet. So what I'll do is I won't change anything here, but I'll change the name of my virtual network, which is parameters VNet name. And then I'll change the name of my subnet to parameters subnet name. Let's say subnet name. And I'll just change this out here. This is my network interface card. And the dependencies that the network interface card has. Finally, my virtual machine. At the last, my virtual machine is getting created. I'll say parameters VNet or VM name. This is something that I haven't passed yet. So I'll say a VM name parameter is something that I'll declare right now. I'll say it is VM name is one of the parameters that I pass. It's a virtual network, or sorry, it's a virtual machine, and depends upon what? Storage account. But I'm not creating the storage account, right? So what I'll do is I'll delete this particular dependency. But it definitely depends upon the virtual network, sorry, the network interface card, whose name is what? Parameters NIC name. So I'll remove this out, and instead of this place, I'll say it is parameters NIC card name out here. Again, here the display name or the tags here can be removed. You can remove this tags completely. VM size. I copied my VM size before I went ahead and started my, let's say, lecture. I'll copy this entire thing that I got from my Azure portal. And instead of standard A2E2, which is a size that is probably not available, I'll paste this particular size. Then it's asking me what is the name of your computer, meaning VM name and the computer name should be the same thing. So I'll say it is parameters VM name and then the username and password. I'll just give a username called test user. Just give a password here called something like this. Or you can let the user also declare this out. For which, what I'll do is I'll parameterize this as well. I'll say new parameter, username, and new parameter, password. But one thing is that password is not a string. Password will become something called as a secure string. I want a user to pass this password securely. I'll just scroll down and instead of using this username and password, I'll say parameters, let's say username, and also I'll do parameters password. I'll remove this password out here. I'll say parameters. I'll say this password up here. Then I have something called image reference, Microsoft Windows Server, and then it's pointing out to a very old image. I don't want this one, but this is the image that I need. 2019 data center generation 2. So I'll say 2019 data center gen 2 out here. This is the image that I want to use. Version is latest. Scroll down. Then you have the OS disk that is getting created with the name called VM disk OS, something like this. I'll say simply, very simple. I'll say OS disk ARM or something like this. I'm just hard coding it out. Finally, you have what? Network interface card. Till now, I did not, let's say, discuss on how the network interface card is getting integrated. This is where the VM is taking the network interface card, and I'll change the name of the network interface card from this network interfaces to parameters NIC name out here. And finally, there is something called what? Diagnostic profile, boot diagnostics enabled. I'll say false. I don't need the boot diagnostics out here. So I don't need to give the storage account ID at all. I'll delete this out. If you want, just say true and give the storage account ID. That's the only thing that you need to do. And save this out as a VM ARM something like this .json file. And once I save this, I can click on this I button to understand how the resources are getting created and what is the order of relationship and all these things out. Just to understand whether everything is, let's say, working, everything is, let's say, integrated with each other. Again, if you look at this one, your network interface card is dependent upon what? Public IP and the virtual network or the subnet. Subnet is dependent upon what? Network security group rule. Finally, virtual machine is dependent upon what? That particular NIC. This is how the order of dependency is working out. Just close this. Take my entire template out here. Go to the Azure portal and come here. I already have a resource group that is there in EastUS. I'll say deploy a custom template. Save. And this is the demo RG. Now let's see. Public IP address name. I will say demo IP ARM. Some address out here. Allocation method. Static or dynamic. I'll just go with dynamic. You can also go with static. Not a problem. NSG name. I'll say ARM NSG something like this. VNet name. I'll say ARM VNet. Subnet name. I'll say ARM subnet. Address space. I'll say 10.0.0.0 for 16. Subnet address space. I'll say it is 10.0.0.0 for 24. NIC card name. I'll say something like ARM NIC card or something like this. VNet name. or VM name, sorry. I'll say demo VM. Username, I'll give something like test user. Password, just observe this. This is a type of what? Secure string. So now if you enter the password, this is how it will take the password in out here. This is how we give something called as a secure string out here. And I'll say review and create this out. And once I review and create, it's validating everything. Validation passed. I can hit the create button out here to create a virtual machine as such using an ARM template out here. Yes, any questions here? Anyone, any questions here? Anyone, any questions that I can take? See, one thing that you all can think is that why are we taking so much of pain to create a template when you can actually do it very easily on the portal? No, on the portal, it just takes you some clicks to go ahead and let's say create all these things. Microsoft is taking care of creating a template and creating all your resources out here. Then the question here is that why are we taking so much pain? Because it took me around 40 minutes to write this template. Actually, in real time, when I go ahead and write this template, it took me around 5 minutes to write a template. Because since I'm explaining you all how to write a template and all, it took me around 40 minutes. But if I go ahead and write it out, I'll just take around 2 or 3 minutes to go ahead and write the entire template and put all the parameters and everything and get started. But again, yes, portal is easier to go ahead and create this out. But my point is that what if you want to create 10 VMs using a template or 10 VMs out here, let's say with the same configuration. Now to create it from the portal, it takes a lot of time to go ahead and let's say create each and every individual virtual machine out here. Using a template, I can do a parallel creation of everything. I can do, meaning if one VM is taking 5 minutes, 10 VMs will also take 5 minutes using the same template because everything is getting created parallelly. What if your client comes back and tells you that, you know what, I need 10 VMs with 10 different configurations, meaning one VM should be in size called D2, the other VM is D3, the other VM is A2, the third VM is something like that. Each and every VM should also get created in different locations. Each and every VM should also have different public IPs, different NIC cards and all these things. In that cases, ARM template or Terraforms or PowerShell, they kind of help you to automate all this infrastructure. They kind of help you to create all these things, and also you can store your infrastructure somewhere. Meaning all this is the configuration using which you built your virtual machine, and you are sure that even if the virtual machine gets deleted, you can create the same configuration, or you can let's say use the same template and reproduce the same configuration out here. So reproducibility, reusability is something that I'm getting into. So yes, any questions still here? Anyone, any questions still here? Anyone, any questions? Again, if you see, it went ahead, created all these resources, bottom to top. It firstly went ahead, created the NSG. Firstly, it if you have observed the template creation, it created the public IP in an NSG in parallel because both the resources are not depend upon each other. After that, created the virtual network, created an interface, created the virtual machine, and also the disk inside the virtual machine out here. So you have the OS disk ARM, you have the VM, you have all these things that you have used. And now if I give this template to you, you can simply take the template, give all the properties, and you can create your own virtual machine out here. That's what is the advantage in approaching all these problems or in approaching this one using an ARM template as such out. Is any questions here? Any questions still here? Anyone? Any questions still here? Again, assignment here is that let's say I want multiple VMs, meaning number of VMs is 2. Let's start with very 2. Simple 2 out here. This can be 20, 200, whatever it is. Can you create 2 VMs using an ARM template and also implementing a copy index logic out here. Copy index to create multiple things out here. Again, the question you need to ask yourself is that, do I need multiple virtual networks? Do I need multiple subnets? Do I need multiple NSGs? Do I need multiple public IP addresses? Do I need multiple, let's say, NIC cards? Or should I go with just one NIC card, one public IP, and multiple VMs? This is the question that you need to ask yourself. If you, let's say, go ahead and create something, if you go ahead and create a virtual machine, how is it that you want to, let's say, iterate? Meaning, it's very important to understand that one VM can be attached to one public IP at max and one NIC card at max. One network interface or no, one network security group rule can be attached to multiple subnets. One subnet can have multiple virtual machines inside it. So you just need one virtual machine. Sorry, you just need one virtual network, one subnet, one NSG, but multiple public IP addresses, multiple NIC cards, and multiple VMs and multiple OS disks out here. So everything beyond this point is multiple. Everything till here, the reason that I put everything in the left hand side is because you can have single resources, meaning one virtual network is itself enough to host around 65,000 VMs out here. One subnet inside a virtual network is itself enough to host around 251 virtual machines. One NSG is itself enough to, let's say, attach this out. But you need, if you have multiple network interface cards, which you need for multiple VMs, you also need multiple public IPs. So then, how do I iterate my public IPs? Meaning I need multiple public IPs right now. I need multiple network interface card right now. And also I need multiple VMs along with multiple disks out here. This is the assignment that we are going to go into, is a little bit of advanced ARM template on how do you create multiple resources. Again, it was pretty straightforward to create multiple storage accounts. Very simple, you put a copy index, done, it will take care, create all these. But when you want to create multiple VMs, you also have to, let's say, note down on the multiple, let's say, network interfaces, the multiple public IPs, the multiple VMs, and also the multiple disks out here. So this will get a little complex. This is something that I want you all to try out on how do you create all these resources out here. Use Google, YouTube, whatever it is, I don't mind. Try out. Let me know what are the errors that you get. I don't want to give me a solution. Give me the error. I'll tell you what is the mistake that you're working on. Yes, any questions still here?
How you can deploy multiple ARM template in portal?
Multiple ARM templates in portal. Firstly, I don't want to deploy multiple ARM templates in the portal. I just want to deploy one single ARM template with multiple resources inside it. Again, if you want to use multiple ARM template deployed at one go, not possible. You will have to create this custom deployment multiple times to deploy multiple ARM templates out there. So using
That means
portal,
I'm
it's
asking actually
Mhm.
client need I want a 10 VMs
Okay.
in different inside
Mhm.
specifications. So on
Yes,
that time,
in
how
different
you can deploy?
yes, yes, in different specifications. Then my question is that why do I as a client, see, you're my, let's say, employee, I'm your client. You're telling, or I'm telling you that, you know what, I need multiple VMs with different configurations. You're telling me that I'll give you 10 different templates. I'm telling you that, you know what, no, I don't want 10 templates. I just need one template which will create me 10 different VMs with 10 different configuration, 10 different locations, 10 different sizes out here. Can you do it with one template? Just one template, not 10 templates. I don't want to go ahead and deploy it 10 different times. I just want to deploy it one single time. And I want, later, if I want something, I just want to add a simple block and it also has to create the 11th VM. Can you possibly go ahead and give me something like that? That is the client requirement out here. Meaning if it's 10 different configurations, not 10 different templates. I just need one template which can give me 10 different VMs with 10 different configurations out here. That's the thought we need to get into. Good.
How you can give the inputs in
Yes, sir.
portal?
That's something that you have to tell me. That's something that you will have to tell me right now, that, you know what, this is how you need to give the input. I don't know. I'm your client. right? I'm your client right now, so I have hired you so
Okay.
that you can write this template for me. Just a second. I'll just take a question offline. Yes. In Azure portal, no, there is limited option out there. One thing that you can do is that you create one VM, and when you create a VM, Azure creates something known as a deployment. When you create a VM, you get all these things out. You can do redeploy, and you can go and edit all these properties and redeploy something out there. But directly, you cannot tell that, you know what, I need 10 VMs with this, and deploy it out. Microsoft will simply tell, okay, fine, you know what, this is a capability Azure portal doesn't support. You have to come through your own ARM template. It's a custom ARM template that you need to do. You'll have to do ARM template if you need something like that. So that's what I want to get into, is that how can I go and give multiple VMs with different configuration? Again, not a problem. Take your time. Take this entire week. By the end of the week, on Friday is where I want this particular output. Is that how many, let's say 2 VMs. I need 2 VMs. Firstly, using copy index, same configuration, I'm okay with it. Secondly, can you create multiple VMs with multiple configuration, different things around? How do you do that? Is what I want to get into. Yes, any questions still here? Anyone, any questions still here? Okay. Okay, guys, so please work on this one. First, let's try a single virtual machine. If you're comfortable with single, let's go to multiple out there. If you are not, please let me know on what are the issues that you're facing with a single VM. We'll address those and then we'll look into that particular assignment. Okay. Thank you and have a good day ahead.